Hello and welcome back to another week of DXV podcasting with Nye, Ollie and Chris. Ollie's still wearing a hat and Chris has still got a headset on. So what we're going to do is get straight into it. So how are you doing, boys? Are we all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Busy away, but good.
Find some time to come on a rugby podcast and chat about fantasy rugby. Always got time for that. Lovely. So most weeks we're going to start off with the DXV predictions. Last week Ollie was all smiles because he got 4 out of 5 and it was the last game that tripped him up. However, this week, boys, we have not done so well, have we?
It could have been better.
It could have been better. So let's look at last round predictions. We said that there was Falcons basically didn't have a chance and Exeter was going to win. So all three of us backed Exeter and Falcons first win. I mean, we've got to say something about that, surely, haven't we? First win for Falcons.
Still bottom of the table, though. I will just push that out
there. which raises like a really good point because there was a point online raised and it was like if there's any points against the sort of losing bonus points. Because Falcons are at bottom, but they've won a game.
Yeah.
And I think it's Exeter, like, just is one place above them, but they've lost. Because they've got like the losing bonus.
But then the counterpoint to that is if you get smashed every game, but chance one.
Yeah.
Like
there was some actually.
Are you a better team?
There was like quite interesting post that was on the Facebook the other day. It was from an ex-supporter, and they were like, I think, Chris, you mentioned on the post, like, yeah, we're not doing so well on the predictions. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, on our, like, Exeter fan chat that they have internal, they all knew that they were going to lose against Falcons, which, I don't know, it's just interesting to me because I was just like, it was one of the games that I was more sure of in my mind, but that's probably indicative of the fact that I know very little about rugby.
The fact that everybody else backed you up, Ollie, I don't think you're alone in that, and I don't think there was many people out there that had to put their hand on their heart for that would have picked Falcons for the win. So we're going to move on and gloss over the fact that Ollie has just called it the Facebook and not Facebook.
No,
we'll
sorry,
I mean, we'll deal with that in
private. There'll be a separate punishment.
I'm going to clear my name here. I meant the Facebook page. Not
that will now forever be Ollie's nickname. Ollie the Facebook one.
Not like a...
So we carry on the downhill sort of spiral that we started because the next game, Saints Sharks, we all backed Sharks, and Saints pulled it off quite well. Chris is Chris is quiet, his beloved Sale.
That was not the game for Northampton to start firing. Like, everyone knows that Saints have that game in them. They have not played that way the entire season. I mean, granted, Sale haven't been playing exceptionally well, but Jesus Christ, like, that was... Yeah. I was not a happy camper on Friday evening.
No, and I think it was at this point when somebody had commented on sort of my Facebook going sort of predictions going well now, because it was kind of all of us have backed 2-on-2, and Chris is a big fan of trying to keep credibility on this podcast. We're not doing a great job with our predictions that week, but Saints with a pretty strong win over Sharks. Next on was Bears Saracens. Chris and Ollie both went for Saris. I went for Bears. So that was
You were happy for a lot of that game, and
for me, it was literally I only caught the back end of it, but it was literally the last kick, wasn't it? Was it the last kick?
Yeah. Lazowski put it over to win it.
Yeah, like. And I remember
that game was mental. That was the most Bears game I've ever seen. It was like absolutely fire and attack.
Ibitoye with some like just literally insane runs.
I'm pretty sure he puts like sellotape on his hands before he goes into a game. Like He's
yeah.
just like he's got a little magnet in that ball or something because he is like the way he grips it with one hand is the antithesis of how you are told to pass, carry,
Yeah.
hold the ball. Like some
Yeah.
coach has not done their job, but thank God they didn't because it's worked out really well for him.
It's like you said, it was a game that I kind of sat there conscious. I was like, it's sort of like all or nothing at this point. But yeah, held his nerve, kick at the end to sort of knock it over, win it. But sort of one of the crazy game to watch, but enjoyable nonetheless. Moves us on to the other Saturday game, Quins against Bath. Chris, you back Bath. Me and Ollie both went for Quins. Ollie, I'll come to you because I'll stay quiet.
Quality wins out, boys.
Yeah, upsetting to say the least. Like happy on the level of being like I'm quite a big Bath supporter, but having watched Quins last week and throughout this season so far, I didn't see Bath having it in them, and then obviously they just pull through in this game. But yeah, you have the likes of like we'll go into the players I suppose later on in terms of the games, but yeah, Chris takes it on this one. So
yeah, come on in. And I think sort of there was some fly halves stuff going on there, but a close game. It's like 26-24. It's like,
I think Marcus
again,
came out on top of that battle, by the way. Like the Finn Russell. I mean, Finn Russell didn't have a great game, right? Like a few kicks didn't go the way they should have gone into the dead ball area, all that stuff. So wasn't an ideal game. But Marcus was doing some magical stuff. Did you see a little like the ultimate dummy, like literally dropped it as if he was gonna kick, regathered and then passed it off? I was like, that was
yeah,
tidy.
The old dummy drop kick. Oh, you're gonna be
yeah.
No,
That
was
was
Good kick to Isgro as well to score that try in the corner, and like what a debut for him. We put it up on the Instagram, no, on Instagram for
the
a
socials.
debut. Yeah, the socials. He had a cracking game. It's exciting to see him and how he'll do for the rest of the season.
Nice, and it is. I think some of those tries are 50-50 tries. The little sort of cross it. He's come down with that ball, where if he hadn't had, somebody had got it. But yeah, close game and come away with a win. Leaves us with the last game. Tigers Gloucester. Another close game. To be fair, anything within sort of a penalty to sort of win it. 3 points is a close game. Who wants to take us through what is the sort of Tigers Gloucester battle there? Chris, you picked Tigers along with Ollie. I picked Gloucester.
I think this is an opportune moment to point out now that you did get a clean sweep of every game wrong.
I did put on my Facebook. I did put on my Facebook that I thought we were picking losers, in which case I won. Yeah, I got an absolute clean sweep wrong. You are right.
Yeah. No, Leicester's just better. Gloucester's attack is lethal when it gets going. But as with any time you try and change the way your team plays, right? There's like a few core components of the game. So you've got set piece, your kicking games, your aerial game, your defense and your attack, and they link and they intertie, but like those are kind of like your core pillars, I would say. And someone will tell me I'm wrong and probably be right, but like that's the way I would think about it. If you're going to focus on when you start the rebuild, you've got to focus on something. And Gloucester are clearly focusing on attack, and it's working, right? Their attack is sharp, it's lethal. They score some absolute wonder tries, but defense is just not there. Like,
you win World Cups off defense. You win Six Nations. You win championships off defense.
Yeah, and like that's not to say that like Gloucester, like there's layers to come, right? It's a long season. They have time to build and work on that. But Leicester are an extremely physical team. If you look at their squad, there's not like a load and loads of superstars in there. There's a few, don't get me wrong, but it's not like super
Yeah,
electric necessarily in their attack, but they're just a physical team. And they're starting to layer attack onto what is their defensive DNA as well. And I think that just shone through, right? Like when you have a more consistent, like 80% attack, 80%
Yeah.
defense, beat 100% attack, 20% defense. Like
I think for a sort of a few weeks into a new season of the Prem, to have what is 4 of the 5 games sort of within a try of each other, all of them scoring sort of relatively good points up into the 20s, sort of 2-3 tries scored each, all within a try of each other. Obviously, apart from Chris's beloved Sale. The rest of it, it's not a bad thing for the Premiership. There's some exciting rugby. There's some exciting sort of in. The last thing you want to see is sort of people, again, 20 odd points up. Yeah, an interesting round of rugby. And talking about that, now we've covered off the predictions, we're going to jump straight into fantasy and our fantasy game. So, Chris, let's come to you first. Who was your sort of highs and lows this weekend in your fantasy team? I did note that you didn't do too badly, beat me this week.
Did indeed. Yeah, no, I was reasonably happy. There were a few things that didn't go as planned, hence I'm not first. But no, really happy with Isgro. Picked Isgro, went out on a limb. World Sevens Player of the Year in a Harlequins team usually means you're going to be a reasonable carrier, at the very least. So, and you're probably going to have a bit of pace. Only concern was obviously like it's a very different fitness to go from sevens where it's super high intensity but shorter periods of time to what is 15s where it's a bit more of a marathon and a slog, but I suppose that tracks with a winger anyway. So in terms of how you play, yeah, really, really happy with him. Josh Hodge as well did really well for me. Captain Faye Waboso, which first 10 minutes of the game I was flying. I was laughing. I was like, this is great. Way to go, Faye Waboso. Bring it home.
Right down. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it got real quiet real quick. Yeah, like I had a really big spread over the Prem actually, so it was quite interesting because I was invested in every game because I had players in each game over the weekend, which was
I think that's
fun.
one of the fancy bit that we talked about is that we sort of you build fans of what is the Premiership rather than sort of fans of individual clubs. The people that check out other games and maybe that fan wouldn't watch this game because they're not interested, but suddenly they are. Ollie,
I've said before.
Sorry.
Go on, sorry.
No,
I was just going to say it's really cool because I end up like it does genuinely work because like so as a big sales supporter, like I find myself equally invested. So I was genuinely torn between watching Sale Sharks and watching Exeter versus Newcastle because I have Faye Waboso captained in my team and Josh Hodge, and Ross Vincent. There's 3 players like I really want to watch that game. Does that make sense? So it does work.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I'll say one thing. As you can tell from my predictions, I backed all 5 losing teams. And because of that, the players that I picked in my fantasy team were built off the teams that I thought that would win that have lost. So actually, when I looked through my team, there wasn't that many that sat on a winning team. And if you know about our scoring metrics, obviously minutes played on a winning team will get you quite a lot more points than minutes played on a losing team. So I didn't do fantastic. But Ollie, we'll come over to you for your sort of highs and lows of your players from the weekend.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet because I'm not an orator like Chris, nor do I have the depth and breadth of knowledge of him either. But somehow I beat both of you this week, which
Ollie just quietly rolling on in the background, mate. 2 weeks in a row comes top.
Mate, 2 weeks in a row I've top 10. No highs and lows. So had Ibitoye again this week. He did as well as ever. Absolutely crushed it in the second, specifically the second half. Ollie Lawrence again, really good game there. 43.7 for me. Captained Caden Murley, he didn't do so well for me, which I was a bit frustrated with. But then, yeah, the likes of like Tom Willis, Ogre did absolute stormer again. Yeah, like the only player that didn't do so well for me was Woodward, so he won't be coming back into the fold again next week because that's how I select my players.
Yeah.
Don't do it off any particular. There's no method to the madness.
Ollie
other
holds a
than,
grudge.
Yeah, Ollie
yeah.
punishes people. He thinks it genuinely matters.
Yeah.
Joe is going to watch this podcast and be like, "That's unacceptable. I need to fight my way back into."
Yeah, exactly.
I think his minutes played as well, because I think he only played what 50 sort of 3 minutes and came off after being in the Dream 15 the sort of week before. But I'll cover off. You've covered off. Sorry, go on, Ollie.
With our in-depth stats, mate, on our player cards, I can tell you exactly how long he played. He played. Oh no, he did. Yeah, he played the full. Oh no, he didn't. Hang on.
This is Ollie flicking back through the correct round.
Yeah.
There's another thing you can do on our game is flip back through the previous rounds to see the previous stats.
Yeah. So he did only play 52 minutes, and looks like he didn't actually get that much time on the ball either. 2 meters carried, 1 meter in contact, 5 tackles. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. Right, to finish off, I don't think you mentioned a couple of good ones. I think Ogre for me did quite well. I had Smith, Ibatoye in there. Similar to Chris, captain Waboso didn't do fantastic. After the week before, sort of Bampo, I put him in because I thought actually he might do quite well, but actually for back three, I think relatively low, sort of under 20 points, definitely. So didn't do great. However, my super sub, so times 3 points for him. Jibaloo came straight in, over 70 points for him coming on. So super sub did save me a little bit, and that runs us quite nicely out of there. So those were the highs and lows from us individually. Chris, Ollie, do one of you want to take us through the Dream 15? So the top scoring team from round 5.
Yeah, I'll go for it if you want. So you started out. You got front row is pretty much entirely Baths. You've got Benno Obono and Thomas Atoy as your props. Jamie Blameyer had an absolute stormer. First time a Falcon appears as well at 67 points.
Yep.
Then you ended up with Freddie Thomas and Maro Itoje.
Welsh lad, right?
Yeah, Freddie now finds himself in the Welsh team after playing in the England under-18s and under-20s. So just remember that next time we talk about Faye Waboso now. Ollie Cracknell and Callum Chick and Fitz Harding make up your back row. Fitz Harding had an absolute stormer of a game. Then Harry Randall and AJ McGinty. So your 8, 9, 10 partnership comes from Bears, actually. Then you go to centres with Max Llewellyn, another Welsh international, and Elliot Daly. Still listed as a centre in the game, although if he doesn't play there soon, I'm probably going to move him to wings to make it fair. And then Tommy Freeman, Rodrigo Isgro, and Josh Hodge make up the back three. Hodge being a really good fantasy pick. You get points from the tee and the benefit of having a back three player.
Yeah. No, nice. What was the? Do we know the total score for that team for that weekend?
You could have had 872 points. 0.2 points. And again, fairly budget friendly, would have afforded you any super sub in the game. And you could have had Nathan Langdon, who brought in 46 points on his own, which would have given you a massive 138 points. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So that's a lot. So yeah, again, I think proving that some of our scoring metrics between forwards and backs are pretty spot on. And actually the player pricing works with sort of not pricing too many out, but with making you make some decisions. And we'll come on to that later, I think, when we talk about missing players now for the international later on. So now we find out the maximum score for the round. Ollie's going to rattle us off a couple of the winners from round 5. So first of all, even though we all desperately care about fantasy rugby, we do care about cash as well. So Ollie, who was the £500 round winner from this week, buddy?
Cash prize winner this week, was Colin with 1 try short of a bonus point team. So well done, Colin.
And Colin, golf clap. Nice.
Win £500.
500 quid.
Yeah.
I'm quite a big fan of quite a big
I'll
fan
probably
of the
get you a
team
ticket and a
name.
pint at Twickenham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the team name as well. 1 try short of a bonus point. Keep them coming, as long as it wasn't the team that finished behind me last week. We'll go for it. So that was our cash prize winner. So let's have a look at our table for the week. So round 5, Ollie, going to come back to you. Can you just rattle us through the top 10 in the league?
Yes, mate. So number 1, we had Welford Wanderers, who are doing really well this season anyway. They're 5th overall in the season table, but came first in the round with 747 points, way out in front.
Nice.
Second, we had Rocks, Malls and Oval Balls, one of the common sort of people we see in the top 10 so far throughout the rounds, on 706 points. So, about 40 points different between those two. Number 3, we had New Stadium Loading with 690. Again, doing really, really well at 3rd on the season table. Number 4, we had 1 try short of a bonus point, we just touched on. Number 5, we had Jimbo Jones Bag of Bones, like the name. We got 653.05.
Sure.
Number 6, we got Gilbert Grabbers with 645.65. 7, just the tip, with 632.9. Number 8, we had the Powerpuff Girls with 632.3, so just 0.6 of a difference there. Number 9, we had me with 629.35. And then rounding it off at number 10, we had Truly Scrumptious with 69.2. And then we had Little Chris at number 11, just off the top 10.
I'll just get him in there. Truly Scrumptious, 10 is he's won 500 quid cash before. Same as Ruxmall's Ovals Balls. So it's nice to see some of the cash winners from previous rounds doing quite well. And as you've seen there, you don't have to win and come top of the league to be in with a chance of winning that weekly £500. Obviously, the higher that you get in the league table, the more chance you've got of winning it. However, it doesn't always go. And in fact, I don't think it's gone to the top spot yet, has it? It's always gone to It's always gone to somebody in the top 25, so it's always gone to somebody so far that has had extra entries into the prize draw, but it's not yet gone to the top round winner. So looking forward to when that does happen. So a new feature on this, we mentioned it on the podcast last week. What's going to happen now is we went through some stats. Chris asked some questions last week and we tried to guess a player. So we're going to bring it in. So this week, gents, I have picked up a player. The player has played a full 80 minutes in the previous round. So I'm going to start. I'm going to rattle off some stats, and at each point, you get one guess on who you think it might be. And I'm just going to continue down his stat card for the week, his advanced playing stats, and we're going to see how far we get. Everybody happy with that?
Happy.
Sweet. So this player played a full 80 minutes. And this should narrow it down straight away. He won 6 scrums. Care to take a guess?
I lost you at the start. Did you say 8 minutes or 80?
He played 80 minutes, a full 80 minutes, played a full
80.
game, and he won 6 scrums. Without looking at the website, Ollie, I can see you clicking away.
I'm not looking, mate. I'm not looking.
Okay.
Ollie Chesham.
Not Chesham. Ollie.
Ollie, just get off the site. I'll block you. I will go on. I'll kick you off.
there's only 40 forwards you can pick from. Just.
Oh yeah, because
Any of them.
Joe Batley.
You got it, mate.
Jen.
Word will I? Yeah.
Jen.
Chris is going to claim that you're lying and looking at the website.
I'm actually not. I actually didn't.
Yeah.
Joe Batley.
I was looking at the website, but I didn't actually pick on Joe Batley, and then I panicked.
panicked, gone, named him.
That
So Joe
is
Batley,
some
I picked
bullshit.
after the week before when he was on the sort of Dream 15 side. I picked Joe Batley this weekend and came up with sort of 8 minutes played, 6 scrums won, 1 try assist, 1 defenders beaten, 2 meters carried, 8 meters in contact, 3 successful jackals, giving him 12 points, 7 tackles, but conceded 2 penalties. So Joe Batley's mine. Ollie, we're going to contest that as the first one. We're going to go back, look at the login for the site and see what you were clicking on. But I will say congratulations on that. And what we will do is we'll keep doing that forward. And next week, Ollie, you'll get to pick a player, I think. That's the way we'll do it.
Yeah.
So you pick a player next week, and me and Chris will have a guess. And me and Chris, being upstanding gentlemen, won't cheat like you did. But here we go. We're honestly. So now's the time to probably make the switch across to round 6 and a look ahead of this weekend. So before we go through our sort of predictions and the game, looking at the games ahead this weekend, I'll go through them quickly, and then I'll ask you to pick a couple of just give us sort of 1-2 forwards, 1-2 backs that are going to make your side in this weekend. So kicking off this weekend, we have Bears versus Saints. We then go into Gloucester versus Falcons, Bath versus Sharks, Saracens versus Tigers. I think that'll be an interesting one. And Exeter versus Quins. So those are games this weekend. So Ollie, if I come to you, give us a couple of forwards, give us a couple of backs that are making it into your fantasy team for this weekend.
So I think O'Gray's been good to me. He's going to be a must going forward.
He's earning his place in Ollie's team.
Yeah.
He's earned it. He's earned it.
Yeah, so he'll be a feature.
Spoke to him last week, mate. He was thrilled. Like, that was right next to his jersey is like a little poster of his place in Ollie's team.
a little like badge on his jersey. So O'Gray, I think probably Detroit in at prop as well. I'm gonna have to mix up my second row. I actually might look at Launchbury for this coming weekend. Then moving into the back row, I think Tom Willis, because he's just been an absolute monster. Guy Pepper, I'm going to bring back in because again, like, he's had really, really good games so far this season, and had a bit of a storm at the weekend as well. He must have heard of. Well, exactly. Like, this. If anything, this is indicative of the my method working, because I dropped him last week and he performs to his heart out. And then I think in the backs,
you got to get back in, mate. Got to get back in.
Yeah. In the
they
backs,
want it, mate. They want it.
I'm gonna have to switch it up because so far I've just kind of stuck to the Smiths, but they're obviously out now. So Andre Pollard, I think, will come in. And then looking at sort of scrum half, Will Porter, centres, Van Rensburg, I think I'll bring back in. Will Butt has really impressed me as well. And then looking at the sort of back three, Tom de Glanville, looking pretty impressive actually so far this season. He played really well at the weekend. And then Shagan as well. When we went to watch him against Gloucester a couple of weeks ago, I was pretty impressed, and this past weekend he did a sterling job. So I think he'll be in the team. Oh, and also, I'd be neglected to say Ibitoye, but it goes without. Yeah, it goes without saying really. He'll be a regular feature from now on.
Yeah, we'll cover it a bit more. We'll go to Chris sort of now, but it does make, as soon as we get into this sort of autumn international stage, as soon as we start seeing the internationals sort of disappear, similar to what was the old sort of Six Nations gap, you start seeing some of the teams that are probably more settled because they lose less internationals, but then you see other teams that have got depth in internationals that are still coming through. So it makes it interesting. Makes it more interesting in the fantasy side space, with you having to pick players maybe that you wouldn't go to again. So we'll jump on to you, Chris. I know Ollie's just rattled off for far more than a couple of backs and a couple of forwards, but I'm sure you can still add some value in the fantasy pick space, Chris.
Yeah, so as you said, this is a bit of a wild card round. I think you're going to end up with, because it's the only round with us clashes with the internationals, and you still have the Scottish, Welsh, and all them internationals. It's just the English that are
Gloucester.
gone.
Yeah, Gloucester still got
Yeah,
their Welsh 9-10 in. It's
yeah.
gonna be
So
interesting.
So also this week, interestingly, the prices have changed. So
Ooh,
I know. Overall, there's been a bit of a drop in prices, like an average price, but some of them have absolutely skyrocketed. One of them is Thomas Williams. But so far, I'm going to follow Ollie's thing. He has repaid my faith in him, so he'll probably go in my team from Gloucester. Um, I'll also look at Langdon, putting Langdon back in from
okay.
Saints.
Yeah, good.
That's going to be a hell of a head-to-head if him and O'Grey go up against each other if they're both selected, which I expect they will be. Saints, I think, might struggle against Bears just because they've got the 6 England internationals that are gone to Bears. What have they got? 2, I think. Yeah, 2. Um, but the one that Bears have is a really key. The 2 the Bears have are really key. So you got Randall and Grange gone. So we'll be interested to see what happens there. So yeah, I'll go him. Second row, I think I might go with Freddie Thomas from Gloucester as well. I think he's been really, really impressive. Surprisingly mobile for a big lad. Um, Gets around, makes some
Yeah.
meters, runs some really nice support lines as well, which isn't something you often find yourself saying about a lock. Ted Hill from Bath. He is arguably
On the skirt of
he is arguably the Premier 6 in the league at the minute, with the ability to play lock as well. Last season, he was one of the best line-out poachers in the entire league, so that should work. But they're up against Sale, where they also have one of the most successful lineouts in the league, so it'll be interesting to see how that battle pans out. And then I'm going to stick with Isgro because I think he was really impressive, and I know that Quins use their wings quite a lot. But will they still be able to without Marcus Smith? But they've got Jared Evans as a backup as well, so that's no
that's
bad
not a bad
chat.
backup to have. Yeah.
And then Tobias Elliott from Saracens as well, I think probably definitely gets a
Coming
look in
through.
fact.
Yeah, coming through, making a name for himself. So there you go. Some good sort of tips and tricks then for your fancy teams for the week coming ahead. So that leads us just onto the last bit. So predictions. Clearly, I will go last on giving predictions this week because I had a horrendous week last week. So let's just go straight into it. So first one is Bears versus Saints. So Ollie, who takes that one, buddy?
Bears.
I'll go with Bears.
Yeah.
And that, Chris, we've just said Saints losing quite a bit of internationals against the sort of Bears.
I am going to say Bears as well, actually, I think.
I'm going to go Saints on that one. And this is another case of me just sort of, I still think, like, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure.
Burbank's
I'm
gone.
not sure.
Ben Smith is gone. Trevor Davison is gone.
I still think the quality of the Saints. I'm gonna back Saints. I think. I know they're away. I know they're travelling down, but I'll go Saints on that one. So I am just writing these down as we go. Bears, Saints, Bears. Moves on to the next game. This one I think is going to be quite interesting. Gloucester versus Falcons. Gloucester at home. So Chris, who are we picking for that?
Gloucester.
Back in Gloucester?
Yeah. Gloucester
Ollie?
with a fair margin.
I'm going with Gloucester as well.
Even sort of Falcons coming off their win?
Like, I don't know.
They lost against Tigers, who can cut through them like butter, but Falcons haven't got their attack sorted yet either. So Gloucester keeps scoring tries like crazy tries, then it's going to be hard for Falcons to fight back.
Yeah. I'm going to say Gloucester as well, but I actually think this is going to be... I think Falcons are actually going to score quite a bit, but Gloucester are going to just, it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Gloucester will take it comfortably, but I think both teams will actually end up with a pretty
I hope
decent
so.
shot on the scoreboard as they go through. So that's a clean sweep for Gloucester then as we go through. Next one is going to be interesting. Bath versus Sale, Chris. Let's go to you.
Sale, but not for the usual reasons. I think Bath lose a couple of key players in their team. So out goes Spencer, out goes Lawrence. Charlie Ewell's been important for them. So with those losses, I mean, they have a lot of depth, but those are quite important players for them. So I'm not sure how they'll go. Where Sale Sharks keeps pretty, like, I mean, granted, Sale Sharks also loses Ben Curry and Tom Curry. But I think
we're going to go with absolutely not a shot. Chris picks Sale. So Ollie, as the Bath supporter, over to you to do the honourable thing.
Bath, mate. 100%. 100%. Like, yes, I get what Chris has said, but Sale also lose Tommy Roebuck. Like they lose some, and the Currys, like they lose some pretty important players as well. I think Bath.
It's going to be a difficult one for me. My heart says sort of Bath will do it, but my head still says that Sale's there to hammer them. I'm going to side with Ollie and completely regret it next week when Chris takes a mickey at me. But I'm 100. I'm going to go Bath. Difficult choices. The next one with sort of eye on the international teams and people away looks quite interesting. So Sarries versus Tigers. Ollie, I'm going to come to you first, buddy. Sarries versus Tigers.
So this is really hard. And with Chris's rugby knowledge and yours, I'd be interested to see what you guys say. But like, obviously, Leicester are going to be without JVP, stewards, like tons of people.
Chesham,
yeah. Whereas Sarries, whereas Sarries lose equally, like Jamie George, Ezekwe, Itoje, like Lazowski, Benno, Elliot Daly.
They are a team with depth, but like you said, when have they taken both their hookers?
Yeah, Dan and Jamie George.
Yeah.
What? And Chris will bang on about sort of England's depth non-stop. But it's crazy to me that you're picking a first and second string like hooker from what is the depth in your club alone, let alone international side, to be able to call up both a first and second string from the same club. To come and fill a position, to me does seem sort of mental. So who are you picking, Ollie?
I am going to pick Tigers.
Oof. Okay, on Tigers. Chris, across to you. Sarries, Tigers.
I'm also going to pick Tigers. I think when I think through it, I think their back row has been absolutely torn apart just by injury. So Juan Martin Gonzalez gone, Andy Christie gone, Ben Earl gone. Like you're down to what is Academy coming out to play. You still got Theo McFarlane and Tom Willis, which are like, don't get me wrong, quality players. Like,
we love a bit of McFarland in a fantasy team, Chris.
But you've like your back, so your second row, Maro Itoje and Nick Ezekwe, both gone. You've got Tizard left. And Tizard has historically covered 6 for you.
So I've always thought it's always been and this is why things happening in the back of internationals, like autumn internationals, like Six Nations stuff, like still having the games, because it does sort of narrow the field for the people or the sort of clubs that don't have the international players in there, and it sort of does narrow the field a little bit. Just to make it slightly interesting, because I think it's going to be a coin flip, I'm going to pick Sarries against you two picking Tigers, and I will take the risk on that quite happily. Because, like you said,
Sarries are at home, right?
Sarries are at home. I've always a big fan of like young kids when you actually give them a shot. When you take that academy player and they know they've been waiting for this time of the year because they know that they're gone. I've actually got a shot to get in there, and they're all chomping at the bit to absolutely come out and sort of and go for it. And yeah, I'm going to back Sarries there, which leads us nicely into the last game of the weekend, which I know Exeter are hovering down at the bottom, but Quins haven't had the best start, and with quite a lot of people out being selected for England, it's an interesting game, I think. Chris, I'm going to come to you first. Exeter at home versus Quins, mate.
Quins win it, but not by as much as people might think.
Quins sort of grind it out, but it's going to be close.
It's not. I don't think it's going to be particularly pretty either. Like I think a lot of Quinn's attack flows through Marcus.
Yeah.
And Jared Evans is a really good replacement. And you've still got Lee Halfpenny in at 15, so you've still got two quality kind of 10-15 axis. You've got, you know what? In fact, have they lost Beard? Yeah, no. Quins have lost their center as well, but they've got Anyanwu in there as well. So yeah, no, I think Quins do well.
Ollie, across to you, buddy.
My head is saying Quins, but I'm going to say Chiefs just to go against the grain.
You're going Chiefs?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. When I look at Chiefs and I look at sort of like who's dragged them out, doing who's Faye Boso picking a ball up at the bottom of the scrum and just gassing through people and getting them over the line. And I think by the time you take a couple of the key, I think they feel it. You might be taking less players from that squad than other teams, but I think as a team, as a squad,
the importance of those players,
they will feel that loss more than some of the other teams. So yeah, I think Quins have got some steady old heads that know how to sort of grind out and win games in backgrounds, but
they lose both their loose heads. So they lose Joe Marler and Finn Baxter. So another one when they're taking first and second. So your loose head of the scrum is significantly depowered, and you're going up against the likes of like Josefa Scott, who's like 700 pounds.
I'm going to back Quins. Yeah. I'm going to back Quins for that, which leads us nicely off our predictions. And we're all hoping that I'm predicting that our predictions are hopefully a lot better this weekend than they were last weekend. So to finish off, what we're going to do is Chris has got some interesting stats. As you know, if you've been listening to this pod for a while, Chris loves hammering through some stats. And with the England selection and the England team being dragged away into the autumn internationals, Chris has been looking at depth. We mentioned it earlier for a few teams about players looking at depth. Chris, England and their depth in positions, buddy. I know you've been doing some work on this. Give us some interesting stuff.
Oh, it's just basic stuff. So I've been looking through it just in terms of what actually, like, I was just wondering, like, how much depth actually is there with England winning the Under-20s World Cup, all that kind of stuff. I was like, what does that look like, and how does it look in terms of like England translating through? Because I don't know if you guys have noticed that there's been a lot of youth coming into the teams as well. So you're starting to see like Fasagabon, Apoko for Jordan come through, Henry Pollock now at 8 for Northampton, 7 and 8. A lot of those kids who were in the under-20s have kind of skyrocketed quite quickly into what is which is great for England, right? But the depth. So I was looking at it and I was like, actually, where are the pinch points? Where are the problems? And most positions have at least between 6 and 8 people realistically competing for them, about to be competing in them. So if you look at, for example, hooker, and this is how quickly stuff can turn around. So for all those countries, Wales, that are worried about things. Like, it can turn around real quick. Yeah. It can turn around real quick, because like if I looked at hooker pre-World Cup, I was concerned that we didn't have depth in that position. Now I look at it and I'm like, who do we have that's realistically in line, and or is going to be in line imminently? And you've got people, so Jamie George, Theo Dan, Luke Cowan-Dickey, Gabriel O'Grey, Curtis Langdon, Craig Wright over at Saints, who you haven't seen play yet, but he played in the Under-20s World Cup. Really good player. Nathan Jabulu, who you've seen getting starts and getting capped with Harlequins now, and is now kind of their second choice, which is seriously impressive. And Jamie Blameyer, who's an already capped international, just trying to fight his way back into that team from an underdog position. That's 8 players that you could realistically pick, and that's omitting Jack Walker, who's also an England capped player. Like, that's 8 players. If I go to the second row, like, I was worried about this until I started doing this list. So you've got Itoje, Martin, Chesham, Coles, Bamber, Twima, Zikwe, Arthur Clark, Lewis Chesham coming through, Junior Kapoku playing over in Racing, so he comes over, and Sadeki at Saracens, who isn't getting a game yet this season. I think he's still got another season in the 20s, but in the next year or two, you'll see him coming through. Like, there is some serious talent
And I
coming
think
through that pathway.
And it times quite nicely when you're looking at a position where you are Lions, some of your names looking at sort of Lion selection, and then with an eye into that future of you've got time now and you've got a couple of Six Nations and a couple of Autumn Nations to try out these combinations before you hit that next World Cup. So I think, and it might be by more luck than it is planning, but I think England have absolutely got it right. You're in a position where you've got the freedom to sort of move and try out new people, and you've got the right new people, and a lot of them coming in. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm sure that similar depth will arrive in the Welsh team in the next 40 years. But
I think when you look at a World Cup, like, what do you want? You want a team that has a couple of senior boys, right? A few of the, like, Test Centurions, things of that nature, old heads who know what they're doing. But you probably want a team with an average of about 50 caps, right? And I worked it out in between World Cup cycles. You don't actually have that many to offer out. You've got about 44 caps, which is quite interesting when you think about it. Like, that's all you've got as a coach to bring someone from zero all the way up. So I think the only worry for England is how quickly do we move people into those capped positions, because there's a few players where we know they're going to have, like, at some point their time's going to have to come. Dan Cole, Joe Marler, not trying to retire you, great players, but I'm sure they listen to the pod
when do you move them on? And like you said, with that much depth, no matter what happens, somebody misses out. It's a conversation that we've sort of had a few times. I think end of last season and stuff, people were talking about Barbary and sort of not bringing him in and it not being the right time, and it's like somebody's missing out with that much depth. But it's always good to have competition for places, and it does definitely in the Premiership. You'll see people competing harder and harder at club level to try and make it in. So thank you very much for that, Chris. That sort of tails us off nicely from this week's podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. Say thank you, boys.
Cheers, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us for another week of DXV podcasting. As usual, if you're interested in fantasy rugby, it's your first time you listen to us, head over to dream15rugby.com. You can sign up now and pick your Dream 15 for the next round and join us playing fantasy rugby for the rest of the season. There are prizes on offer for not only you, but you can sign up and win some prizes for your local rugby club as well. As usual, you can join us on all of the socials, the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok from Ollie, and also now on Reddit. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.